I'd been dying to get out of noisy London for a while, away from the constant phone calls and deadlines. So in early October, I decided to head up to Lake Windermere in the Lake District for a fishing trip with an overnight stay. It sounded perfect, a quiet spot surrounded by thick woods, with dark water that locals swore was crawling with massive pike. I borrowed my dad's old Land Rover, chucked in my fishing rods, a tent, a couple cans of beer, and hit the road. It took about 3 hours, and by sunset, I'd set up camp on the shore, a little fire crackling away, the kind of silence around me where you could hear the wind rustling the treetops. I'd switched my phone off back in the car so no one could bug me. Big mistake, that was. Night came on fast, and I was sitting by the fire, tossing in some sticks, when I heard it, a rustle in the bushes, maybe 20 meters off. I swung my flashlight around, figuring it was a fox or a badger, but saw nothing. Then it happened again, closer this time, and I shouted, "Oi, who's there?" More to calm myself down than expecting an answer. Dead silence. Just the fire popping and my own breathing. I chalked it up to nerves and crawled into my tent to crash. But just as I started drifting off, this sound hit me, a low, guttural growl, like something was trying to choke out words through a busted throat, and it froze me solid. I grabbed my flashlight and my knife, the one I always took fishing, with a 4-inch blade, and poked my head out. The beam caught something, a tall figure, maybe 6'6", with these long arms dangling almost to the ground. I couldn't make out a face, it was hidden under a mess of matted hair, but the eyes, they glowed yellow like an animal's, locked right on me. I yelled and ducked back inside, but the thing charged. Its claws, or whatever they were, ripped through the tent like it was tissue paper, and I felt this ice-cold grip clamp around my ankle. I thrashed, stabbed blindly with a knife, and hit something. There was this ear-splitting screech, loud enough to make my head ring, and the grip loosened. I didn't look back, just bolted through the tear and sprinted to the car, leaving everything behind. Tent, rods, bag, all of it. The engine sputtered twice before it kicked in, and I floored it down the dirt track until I hit the main road. My hands were shaking like mad, my shirt soaked with sweat, and I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting those yellow eyes to pop up. I made it to a pub in Kendal, blurted out to the barman that something attacked me, but he just laughed and said I'd had too much whiskey by the campfire. I crashed at a cheap motel that night, then drove home the next morning, swearing I'd forget the whole thing like a bad dream. A couple days later, I was back in my flat in Hackney, scrolling through news on my phone, when I saw it, 3 missing near Lake Windermere. The story said a group of students from Leeds had gone up to that same forest for the weekend. Cops found their car abandoned, with backpacks scattered around and a tent torn to shreds, just like mine. They were blaming wild animals, but the comments from locals hinted at something else. An old tale about the master of the woods, something that takes anyone who disturbs its peace. I shut off my phone and haven't checked the news about Windermere since. But every night, when I'm falling asleep, I hear that growl again, and I know it's still out there, waiting.